Hi, I'm Haley. This is my very first YouTube channel. Kind of scary, but it's exciting. So, what we're doing today for my very first video, we're going to be reacting to some scary ghost stories on TikTok. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
This is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life, and I wasn't even planning on making a video today, but I feel like I need to get out of my system because I have been welling up with tears and having full body chills from being scared. If you know me in real life, that never happens to me, so I feel like I just need to get out of my system. So this is that story. This happened 4 years ago. I was a freshman in college and I was talking to this boy at the time, and he caught me when I was coming home for the weekend from college, and he asked if he could take me stargazing. I say yes. He picks me up. It's maybe 11, 12 o'clock at night. He drives me to the state park specifically because I had never been before.
Sweet, sweet.
And specific to note about this state park next to my hometown, it isn't, when I say in the middle of nowhere, I legitimately mean in the middle of nowhere. The closest gas station is like multiple miles away. Nobody lives near there. Yeah, you get the gist. So we get there. He originally parks in front of this watchtower. We're walking up the watchtower. Something to note about me. You're gonna learn about two of my fears today. I am afraid of heights. The tower starts shaking from the small amount of wind, and I immediately am like, hey, I don't like this. We're about halfway up. I don't like this. Let's go down. So he's like, okay, I actually thought you might be scared, so I have an alternate way for us to go look at the stars, but we have to walk through the woods. Usually, and before I get any comments about that, I know, okay? I know. The only reason why I went is because he was like, it's like a minute and a half.
Minute and a half, though. Like, honestly, not even I would do that. No. No. It's in the woods. I don't care how much you trust a person. You shouldn't trust anybody with. No. I don't like that. Big mistake
The
there
woods.
already.
Perfect. A minute and a half. No worries. I shouldn't have listened to him because it was a 10-minute walk, if not more. It is so dark in those effing woods that you cannot even see your hand in front of your face. I'm walking through the woods. I'm doing fine. My other fear is the dark. Okay, I'm a full-grown woman. I am exponentially scared of the dark. Like, unrealistically scared of the dark. We're walking, we hit a fence, and not just any fence, a barbed wire fence. By this time, my eyes are fully adjusted in the dark, and out in the distance, I can see a barn. Right next to the barn, I see a big silo, and if you don't know what a silo is, it's just this big metal structure that holds corn where I'm from. A lot of farmers have them. And I immediately ask him, is this someone's land? He doesn't really answer me, and I'm like, no, seriously, is this someone's land? Because I'm not going to get shot tonight.
Yeah, no. Immediately. No. No. Like, why? Why? I have private property. She's lucky she didn't get shot.
Because where I'm from, they're not going to ask you on their 5 acres of land what you're doing on their land. They're just going to shoot you because they don't know who you are at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Or I guess what you are. So finally he tells me it's someone's land, and I'm like, I'm not trespassing on someone's land. Like, no thanks. 3 strikes and you're out. I've walked through the woods. I have tried to conquer my fear of heights, and I'm walking in the dark. No. This is no. So finally he's like, okay, fine. Like, we'll go back to the car and I'll drive you home. As we're walking, I don't know what it was. The hair on the back of my neck suddenly stood up. I start to feel like someone is watching me. And all my girlies with anxiety like me, you know what I'm talking about. But this was different. This was different. This was like burning 2 holes in the back of my head because they're staring so hard. And it was so bad that I kept turning around and there was literally no one there. My eyes are fully adjusted at this point. There is no one there that I can see. And I start walking so close to this dude that I'm flat tiring his shoes, which means I'm like stepping on the back of his shoes every couple of steps, and he's getting super mad at me. But eventually, I just grab his arm and I say, there is something out here with us.
You think?
And I made sure to whisper it because at the end of the day, if there is a living human being out there, I don't want them knowing that I feel like something is wrong. And number two, it was really quiet out there, like deafeningly silent. And he immediately tells me, like, Elena, it's okay. Like, your anxiety, it's okay. I understand that you're scared of the dark, but everything's gonna be fine. Like, there's no one else out here. There's no other cars. Everything's gonna be fine. We take probably 3 steps and start to hear rustling. And immediately, this is when my breath literally is taken away. Like, I'm like, I can't breathe. And again, he's like rubbing my back and he's like, it's okay. Like, there is seriously no one else out here. You're gonna be fine. We're walking for maybe a minute. Maybe a minute. We were flashlights out. From our right, a rock doesn't tumble out. It is thrown out into the middle of the path that we're walking. I mean, like, right in front of us. Like, someone threw it. This was a game time decision, right? Right. I left him in the woods. I ran so fast, I left him in the woods. I have never ran faster in my entire life. In all my running girlies, I ran for a minute. Sprinted for a minute. I get to his car and I'm trying the door handles and I immediately am going through all these scenarios. I'm like, what am I gonna do if if there is a person in the woods? So I'm trying the door handles. I'm going to like literally every door and all of them are locked. And all of a sudden I hear him giggling and like jogging out of the forest. And he was like, that rabbit really scared me.
Liar.
A rabbit? And I probably look disgusting at this point, but I legitimately lost my mind on him. I was like, since when do rabbits pick up rocks and throw them at people? Since when has that ever happened? But anyways, we get in the car, we drive off. The whole time, I'm asking him, what do you think that was? What do you think that was? Do you think that was a real person? Do you think that was a ghost? What was that? And I don't think he took me very seriously at the time because he was like, whatever. Needless to say, I never talked to him ever again. And now I will elaborate on why it's so scary to me. I don't think that was paranormal by any means. Because when you experience something paranormal, it's almost like an instantaneous thought. Right? You're trying to rationalize. You're trying to go through the scenarios in your head on how it is possible that that happened. This was different. I have never felt so fearful in my entire life. And let me ask you this. When you get home late at night, maybe after a night out, or when you get home from work, school, etc., what do you think you're going to see when you turn the light on in your room? Probably some decor, probably your bed, your desk, maybe a pet lives there, I don't know. But you anticipate on what you're going to see because you're prepared for what you're going to see. I'm not comparing bedrooms in the woods, but I was not anticipating someone else to be out there because there's no cars out there. There was no way for someone to get out there if they didn't get there before the sun went down, if you catch my drift. And I think there's something, at the end of the day, there is something so deeply frightening about knowing someone was watching you the whole time. And there is something equally as frightening knowing you never saw them. And then you have to think about a plethora of things. Like, why was that person following 2 teenagers in the woods without making their presence known?
Okay, first off, no. Just no. What was he thinking? Taking you out there, especially at night. That should have been a red flag immediately, as it was. But to take you onto somebody else's property? Yeah, no. You could have gotten hurt. And the fact that he thinks that somebody was watching him could have 100% somebody could have been watching him. I don't trust that. Good thing you're no longer friends with him. I would trust your instincts, you know. I always do. I don't go off anything else. If I don't feel safe, I don't do it. That's I don't like how that made me feel. All right, on to the next video.
I'm not imagining this. It's like 1:30 in the morning. It is. It's 1:30 in the morning. I'm at a hotel by myself, minding my own business, about to drift off to sleep, and I get a freaking call from the phone that's in the hotel room, like the landline phone. I didn't even know those worked anymore. And I answer. I get up, I answer, and it's the guy from the front desk that I've been seeing like all freaking day, who's made me feel uncomfortable. And he's like, "Hey, there's a pizza down here for you." And I was like, "I didn't order a pizza." And he was like, "Well, please take it. It has your room number on it." I was like, "That's not possible. I didn't order it." And he's like, "Well, what's your room number?" And I was like, "You know what my room number is because you called my room."
Okay. Okay. I don't mean to laugh. That's pretty scary. One, I'm pretty. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be laughing. If that was me, I'd probably cry. But the fact that he showed up and said, "I heard everything you were saying about me." Like, I've stayed in hotel rooms. The door's right next to the bathroom. You can hear everything. Like, right there. He shouldn't be there to begin with. Shouldn't be there at all. But, like, it's pretty scary that he's just sitting there, standing, like, right by the door. Listening to her talk, I mean, that's privacy reasons, you know? Like, that's not okay. But it's the fact that he showed up. The first thing he says, because she's talking about him, is, he knocks and I heard everything he said about me. Like, what do you do in that situation? Like, obviously the guy's a bad dude because the way the dog's acting, but that's I shouldn't be laughing at that. That's messed up on a whole different level.
What the fuck what do I do?
Okay, on the phone? On the phone. What does he mean by on the phone? On the phone? I don't get that. Did she leave the phone off the line? Like, leave the phone off? And he heard everything. Oh well. Say and? You scared me. You're kind of weird. Go away. Shoo. That's the time when you say, screw it, and you call the cops. Or, like, the front desk, I don't know, he's standing right by the door. Make noise. You have a dog. Open the door. If your dog ain't a good dog, it won't attack, but I'm not saying, it's okay for your dog to attack, but intruder. Hello. That's his fault. Alright, on to the next video.
This spooky story submission is actually so terrifying that it led to the person who was telling me the story to end up in the hospital.
The hospital. The hospital. I've had some ghost experiences, before in the past. I still do now. I live in a really old house. Most of the hauntings still happen outside. That's a story for later. But I've never had an experience put you in the hospital. And I've dealt with some scary things. Scary things. But that's a story for later.
Because of this. So for the story, we're going to call her Danielle, and I'm going to tag her below. We're calling her Danielle because that's what her childhood friends and her family used to call her. So until Danielle was about 14 or 15 years old, she lived on 78 acres of land. She said that in that 78 acres of land, only about 3 other people lived on that land. So it was a pretty secluded area, and Danielle really liked to play outside. That was her favorite thing to do. She loved watching the deers, the rabbits, but her favorite was climbing trees. Something that really bothered her, though, is that her mother would never let her play outside after dark, and we're talking like not even after the sunset, as the sun started setting. She didn't like this, but she obviously obeyed it because it was her mother, and so she had to. Until one day, her mother decides that she is going to go out to a friend's house, and Danielle doesn't want to go with her. But if Danielle doesn't go with her, it means that she's going to be left alone. Her and her mother decide that this is okay and that Danielle is old enough to handle this, so she stays home alone, and her mom leaves at about 3 p.m. Danielle decides that she's going to go outside and she's going to play in the woods. She said that she was outside climbing trees when she felt this overwhelming feeling of being watched. It was overwhelming, and it felt like it was coming from above her. But she keeps looking up, and she's not seeing anything, so she's thinking that maybe her mind's just playing tricks on her, and she kind of shrugs it off. At some point, it starts to get dark, and she knows that she's supposed to go home, but she doesn't want to go home, and she's home alone, so she can do what she wants. So she decides that she's going to stay outside. At around 7:30 p.m., when the sun had already set, she starts hearing a noise, and it's her mother calling her name. She's calling for her to come home. So Danielle is like, oh crap, I gotta get home. So she starts walking home, but she still has this overwhelming feeling of being watched. When all of a sudden, she starts hearing twigs and leaves snapping behind her. So she looks behind her, but she doesn't see anything. She finally gets home, and she realizes that her mom is not home. So while she's outside, she calls her mom, and she's like, Mom, were you home? Like, I just heard you calling my name. And her mom was like, I have not been home this entire time. I'm still at my friend's house. She said this really freaked her out, and she decided to turn around and look in the woods, and she looked over, and she sees a dark figure standing outside in the woods. This freaks her out, so she runs inside, she slams the door, and she deadbolts it shut. She then goes over to the window, and she looks outside of her blinds to see if it's still there, and of course it is not there. She again decides that she's going to shrug this off. Maybe her eyes are just playing tricks on her, and she decides to make dinner. This feeling of being watched, this overwhelming feeling, follows her until the morning. And she said that she didn't feel like she was being watched by one thing, she felt like she was being watched by like several things. She decides to go to her camera because they have cameras in the house, and there's a new video popped up, and I'm assuming that they were motion censored. She didn't say in the email, but she did say that there was a new video, so she looks at it and she doesn't see anything, but she hears this tapping sound on their front door. It's important to note right now that their front door is a big metal door that her mom had put in when they very first moved in. Nothing is on the camera, she cannot see anything, so she decides that she's going to go outside and she's going to look at the door. Outside on the door, there are huge claw marks on this metal big door. She said that she then realized that this could not have been an animal, because if it was an animal, number one, why is it trying to get into her house? And number two, how could it make these claw marks on this big metal door her mom had installed? So this really freaked her out, so I think her way of just coping with things was just shrugging it off. So she does just that, and she goes out in the woods again, and around 7:50 p.m. she's playing in the tree, climbing it again, and she gets that overwhelming feeling again. This feeling again is feeling like it's coming from above. So she decides to look above her again, and what she saw was terrifying. She said that she looked up, and when she looked up, she saw the most figure she had ever seen in her life looking at her. Not only was it looking at her, but it was calling her name, her real name, not Danielle, her real name. But not only was it calling her name, it was in her mother's voice again. Danielle is absolutely terrified at this, and she starts bolting home, and the entire time she's running home, she can hear this thing running after her. She calls her mother on her way home, and she was absolutely bawling her eyes out. Her mom gets home, and she assures her that it's nothing, and that everything is going to be okay, and that it's not a big deal, and that she was probably just seeing things. Danielle did say that this experience was so distraught to her and scared her so badly that she actually ended up being hospitalized for 2 or 3 months because of it. She said she couldn't eat, sleep, drink, nothing. The crazy thing about this is that this is not even the only thing that happened happened to Danielle, something else happened to her that even traumatized her further. This is getting really long, so I'm going to have to make a part 2 on it. If you guys want to hear that second part, that partly also contributed to her being in the hospital, then drop it in the comments and I will make a part 2 and tell you guys that story. That story is even scarier. So what do you guys think of this? What do you guys think this was? Like, this terrified her so much that she's still in therapy to this day. And the second thing that happened to her definitely didn't help at all. So drop in the comments for part 2. Also, if you guys have anything to say to her or anything to like help her feel better, please also drop that in the comments. She could use all the love and support that she could get right now. She is going to see it. I am going to tag her. Thank you so much for your submission, Danielle. And thank you for letting me tag you. You are the first person that has let me tag you, so I appreciate that. And if you guys want to send me your true scary stories, then there's an email in my bio. Just go ahead and email me there and I will come on here and I will tell your story. You do not have to be tagged if you do not want to. My name is Kaisa. I tell you scary stories that are true every single night. So if you like that, then hit that follow button, engage from the bottom up, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much and have a spooky night.
Okay, everybody's heard of mimics. You see the videos on TikTok, YouTube, wherever. To see one though, to like, we've all heard things, but nobody's ever really seen anything. I mean, like, do you think it's a mimic? Put you in the hospital, huh? I mean, that would put anybody in the hospital. To see something like that? No. I've never heard anything call out my name before, ever. Thankfully. Like, no. What do you... Poor thing, like, what do you do in that situation? It's horrible. I feel bad. Dang. What would you guys do? Tell me in the comments. On to the next one.
Alright, I got a scary story for you. This is a true story that my coworker told me one day when we were sitting around on break having a conversation about whether or not we believed in ghosts, and it genuinely freaked me out. So he said back when he was a freshman in college, there was this dorm building on his campus that had been completely shut down. The building had been closed shortly after a tragedy had taken place there where a young woman who was a freshman at the school had unalived herself in her dorm room. So one night, my coworker and one of his college buddies are just sort of roaming around campus looking for something to do when they suddenly find themselves by this building. Now, they had heard the story about what had happened in there, and they knew that the school had closed the building off to any students, but being young, adventurous college kids, they kind of looked at each other and were like, screw it, let's see if we can get in there and explore the place. To their surprise, they actually managed to get into the building pretty easily. And once they were in there, they saw that most of the furniture had been cleared out, lights were off, and even many of the doors inside were deadbolted. So it was clear that no one had been living in that building for quite some time. So they continue exploring the place, just walking up and down the halls and checking out the different rooms, or at least the ones they could get into. Eventually, they found themselves on this one floor of the building that had pretty much nothing but dorm rooms. So they're walking down this one hallway, and as they go, they're stopping at each of the dorm rooms and trying the doors to see if any of them are unlocked or if they can get in, but sure enough, they're all deadbolted. But eventually, they find this one door that doesn't have a lock on it, so they're like, oh, finally, maybe we can actually get into this room. So they try to open it, but for whatever reason, they can only seem to get the door open by like a couple inches. In his own words, he said it was as if someone was on the other side of the door trying to hold it shut. So they're standing there struggling with this door, trying to open it, but it won't budge, and they're looking at each other like, what the hell's on the other side of this door that's blocking it? Eventually, they just get fed up and they say, you know what, let's just move on and try to explore some other rooms. But as they start to walk away, they hear the door behind them slowly creak open. Now, his buddy who's with him is just immediately spooked and just takes off running and just kind of leaves him behind. But my coworker has the opposite response, and he actually freezes there for a moment, before he slowly turns around, and when he does, he sees that, sure enough, the door is open and that there's actually a young woman standing in the doorway. And unlike his friend, he wasn't scared, he actually felt bad, so he immediately starts apologizing to her. He's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like, my friend and I were just exploring this place. We thought it was closed down. We didn't think anybody was living in these rooms. Like, we're really sorry for bothering you. I hope we didn't scare you at all." And the girl was actually really cool about it. She didn't seem upset at all. She told him that it was okay and that she understood, and even introduced herself and began to strike up a conversation with him. So they start making small talk, just talking about, that they're both freshmen and where they're from and, what their majors are and just things like that. And eventually she tells him that she had actually transferred from another school but is now living on this campus and that this is her dorm room. And it was on that note that my coworker goes, "Yeah, speaking of that, why are you living in this particular dorm room? Because this whole building is supposed to be shut down and all the other doors on this floor are deadbolted shut. Like, you're the only one who lives on this entire floor." And he said she was just very sort of nonchalant about it and kind of just looked at him and went, "Oh, really? Well, I don't know." And basically just brushed it off like she didn't know what he was talking about. So he thought that was kind of weird, but he figured whatever. He didn't want to press her on it too much, so he continued just making small talk with her. But as he continued making small talk with her, he said eventually his eyes kind of started to drift past her and look behind her into the room. And it was then that he noticed that the room was completely empty. There was no furniture, no bed, no desk, no personal belongings. It was just a completely bare, empty room. So once he notices this, he's just immediately really confused and weirded out. So he tells her, you know what, I should probably get going. I gotta go find my friend, but it was nice meeting you. So they say goodbye, and he leaves and catches up with his friend and tells him all about that sort of both normal but weird exchange that he just had with this girl. So days go by, and he's still just trying to wrap his head around this weird interaction. And he eventually gets to the point to where he's like, you know what? I'm going to look up that case where the girl had unalived herself in that dorm building. So he looks it up and he finds the name of the girl who had passed away in there. And sure enough, it was the same name as the girl that he had talked to that night. He said him and his friend have never gone back into that building and that it's still abandoned till this very day. If you like this video, stay tuned because I'm going to be posting more creepy stories on here. And even if you have one yourself, feel free to DM me and maybe I'll read it. Thanks.
I mean, what? What? Um, what? I mean, I know it's not unheard of to like see things like that, but what? I didn't like that. I didn't like that not one bit. Something was that's scary. His friend, his poor friend. What? What? To me, like a ghost or a spirit, whatever you want to call them, like physical form. What do you do in that situation? I mean, like, he didn't know. He thought it was like a real person. Things should have clicked. I mean, should have. I don't know. It would have clicked to me. Something wasn't right if she was staying in there in that dorm and you weren't supposed to. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Wow. sorry for the guy's friend, especially to find out something like that. It'd be even scarier, like, if he saw her picture and then was like, woo, that was the girl I saw. Well, you know what? As a child, this isn't really a story for me to tell. It's more of something my grandma should. Later in the future, I'll have people come on and tell their stories and experiences. But apparently when I was a child, I saw a spirit, like a full body, like, person. And I don't know too much about it. My grandma was the one that told me. My mama. She said I saw her dad. I don't know how old I was. I don't really remember. Me and my cousin both did. It was right after he passed away. But I described him to the T, apparently. Like, he was sitting, apparently, on the bed. And I was describing him to her, and she said that it was her dad. So, I mean, like, I believe it. I don't know. I'm not going to say his story isn't true or anything, but, because unexplainable things happen all the time. I don't remember that incident happening, but it's, like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one. Considering it's his friend's story. Tell me what you think in the comments. You know, how did that make you feel? Something that's, I don't know. When the channel gets a little bit bigger and in the future, I plan on going ghost hunting, like, and taking you guys with us. I say us because I'm not the only person who is part of this channel. I have a co-host. His name is Aaron Roberts. He will be joining us shortly in the near future. And we will be discussing more on a lot of more haunted ghost things. He's funny. It'll be a great time. Again, this is just my first video. I know this is a little odd, a little awkward, not very professional, I will say that. I am learning. What a great way to end it. Again, my name's Haley. It's very scary. I didn't really get the chills or spooked from any of these stories. Very, very good ones, though. Do you believe them? This last one that we just watched, not so much. I don't believe the prior one very much either. But what's more convincing about the previous one than this one was the fact that she gave the person's name. And she claims that this person, like, got hospitalized because of it. And she, telling us to, like, give her advice and stuff, you know, like, I'd love to, but what type of advice do you give that type of, like, story? The previous two, the first one that we watched, where the girl went into the woods, now, again, doesn't, like, I would never do that. Like, I know some people, like, oh, so cool, you know what I mean? But no. Do you think, I'm, like she said, she doesn't think that it was a spirit or anything, but that whole situation just didn't sit right with me. Her story, I believe. her story, I believe. Strictly because she didn't 100% claim, well, she didn't claim at all that it was, had anything to do with, like, ghosts or anything like that. But you never know. You see, a person, though, on the other hand, they would have came out unless they were, that's thinking of the worst case scenario, but, like, wanting to, like, you know, or just a weirdo. But yeah, me, I don't know. I live in a very woodsy area. I refuse to go out into the woods at all. I don't do that. There's where I live. It's a very small town, like one horse type carriage type thing, you know what I mean? We even have a ghost town where a lot of tourists go and visit. Very old. In certain times of the year, they open it up to the public, and you can go and do ghost videos there, like go ghost hunting and stuff. Not very many people know about it. This place is very haunted. Even my property is haunted. Not so much inside, more outside. But that's, again, a story for later. Everything right now is a story for later. I'm saving all that for when my co-host, Aaron, just so happens to be joining me in the upcoming videos whenever he does. But for right now, it's just me. Again, thank you so much for watching. Sorry it's not the greatest video, but it is my first. You can call me Hell's Bells. My name's Haley, though. Again, thank you so much for watching. Bye.